Hello, folks. We're gonna give people a few minutes to be here. Hi. I'm hidden behind my thumbnail screen, sort of, halfway. But we'll start in a little bit. Thanks for being here. I hope that you are having a wonderful day today. And that everything about your weekend is more magical than you expected. I don't know what that means. If I think about a magical weekend, it would be absolutely everything going right for me, though, maybe. So maybe that fits in with a magical time for you, too. Hi. So welcome to Sunday Stream. I'm Lee, and we're going to talk about hypnosis. We're going to talk about whatever types of things are really interesting for you. We're going to probably talk about amnesia because this is the amnesia month for my patrons, and we're probably also going to talk about getting better sleep today, because that's a thing that is super important for a lot of people. Like getting sleep, good quality sleep, enough quality sleep for, honestly, the rest of your life is one of the things that predicates us being happier. I'm all about how can we be happier. So, thank you. So if you're new here, thanks for being here. If you are returning, thanks for being here. Either way, I'm happy that you're here. I've been away for a couple weeks. I was putting on an event at the beginning of May, and then the weekend after that was Mother's Day. And now I have no more event, and Mother's Day is over, and I have time to chat with you all. So I'm happy that I get to make that happen. So, I know, it's very exciting, right? And as always, if there are things that you would like to talk about that I have not mentioned, if there are things that you have questions about regarding hypnosis that I have not mentioned, because there's a lot of questions that people have out there that I do not answer because I don't have the idea that you wanted to ask a question. So if you have a question, please feel free to put it in the chat. If you just want to hang out, there's going to be hypnosis at some point in time later. I never quite know how long I'm going to talk for. It's usually between 45 minutes and an hour. Somewhere in there, there's a trance. I answer questions. We chit-chat. It's casual. So, I will tell you that at the event that I was at, there's an auction. So you can put yourself up for auction as whatever you want. So I auctioned myself up as a hypnotist for about 30 to 40 minutes. And I did a couple things with the person. And one of the things that I did was to put them right back into trance because they had never been in trance. And so the first thing is always, how do you go back in trance really easily? Well, you give somebody a trigger so that they can go back into trance really easily, right? And then the next thing we did was to do some bind hypnosis. So like, you bind their wrists together and then they can move their hands around, but their hands are stuck together, or to say their head and then they can't move it off their head. And then increase their sensitivity so that they could be tickled, touched, whatever, more emphatically with a lighter touch. Seemed like a good time was had by all. I certainly had fun with it. I hope they did too. And those are always like some very basic beginner things that I like to do with people because, first of all, they're fun. the effects are really obvious and immediate, and really I'm all about how fun is it. So that was for the fun of it. And I think that a lot of people could find those types of things useful depending on what you and your partners are into or up to together. And I don't usually give people triggers that are going to be open to anyone. I usually give people triggers that are either their trigger so that they can turn it on or off at will, or I give them to their partner and they are going to work for their partner as long as they're in a happy relationship. By the way, so I live in Florida, and Publix has like a massive selection of like their own teas and lemonades next to the deli section. I don't know if they're all the same, but that's how the one that I go to works. I don't go to Publix very often because they're very expensive compared to other things, but they have this, and I thought it was kind of a bizarre collaboration, but it's a strawberry cucumber mint tea. I'm just saying that it is better than I expected, and I cannot stop drinking it. I went to see if anybody else had one available. They did not. So back to Publix I went for this strawberry cucumber mint iced tea, which is pretty nice. So little distraction. I can distract myself very easily, in case you hadn't already noticed. So now that I am back, the event that I was running was taking up a lot of my time. And I am recovering because I'm still not completely finished with handing it over. So there's a transition period which is going on. But my goal is to, at some point in time, do a lot more hypnosis, like a lot more. And I don't know what that's going to mean for going live. I might do it more than once a week. I am going to try to record other things a little bit more often. But I kind of like chatting, even if there's only one other person chatting with me. So thank you very much for chatting with me today. All right. So this is Amnesia Month, as I said. And what does that mean? So amnesia has been one of my fondest things to do with hypnosis since I started. And I think it was really helpful for me as a beginning hypnotist to do something that induced amnesia in the people that I was playing with, because then I would know that they were really hypnotized. Then I would know that they had been hypnotized, that they weren't just playing along. I absolutely hate role play. I know some people really, really love it, but I cannot stand it except under really narrow, specific circumstances. It's just not my thing. I'm not an actor. I don't do that sort of thing well. So I really just want to be able to know that somebody is hypnotized to do the things that I am expecting them to do, or that they have hired me to be able to do, right? Thanks for being here, Rick. And the more that somebody practices amnesia, so there's two types of people, at least in my experience, largely. So there's people who are absolutely fantastic with amnesia. They will forget absolutely everything from the beginning until they wake up. There's this big blank spot in the middle, no idea what goes on. If you reminded them, maybe they'd be like, oh yeah, I kind of vaguely remember that. First of all, that's me. I'm super, super good at forgetting everything in the middle. On the other hand, I am not necessarily great at taking suggestion in. So I guess there's maybe, let's say there's 4 kinds of people. People that are really great at forgetting stuff. People who remember to do all the stuff unconsciously. People who are really great at amnesia and don't do all the suggestions. People who are not really great at amnesia, but might follow suggestions. And people who aren't really great at amnesia and don't follow the suggestions. We're getting a little mathy here, a little statistical. But however you look at it, my goal is for the people that want to experience amnesia. And not everybody does. Like, some people are really afraid that they're going to lose some part of them, something that's going to be really important. So as a hypnotist, you can, and I usually stress, that if there's something really important that you need to know, you don't have to forget it. And sometimes people will say, well, I want you to forget a letter, I want you to forget a number. And if you're like an accountant, you don't want to let go of a number. It's okay. Forget something else. It's not the end of the world. You're not going to forget it forever, just for a short period of time, right? Like, people go, I don't want to forget those numbers. But most people are like, okay, I can forget a letter or a word for a short period of time. I once, because I'm cheeky like that, had a writer be unable to type the letter E for 24 hours. Fortunately, they had a writing partner. Hi, David. So it was, those types of things are fun. Like, forgetting something, and you don't want to do it maliciously. You don't want to do it so someone's going to be like despairing and making a lot of mistakes. You just want to do it in a way that's going to be fun for them. And obviously, like, if they had to type something that was very important, they would have typed all the E's. But they didn't type all the E's. Their partner typed all the E's. They couldn't have done it on their own. Their texts to me, their DMs to me were kind of funny. So there you have it. So, you know, if you want to make somebody forget something like that, it's not usually that hard, as long as you don't select something that somebody is like, absolutely not, I need to know that. And if you tell somebody that they'll always know the important stuff when they need to, and sometimes you can just say, and you can remember everything after 2 or 3 hours, which is a thing that I often say to people, that you'll remember it off after 2 or 3 hours. Everything can come flooding back to you. You can decide if you're going to remember it or if you're not going to remember it. So what are some things that people might want to forget? What are some things that you might want to forget? What are some things that I have made people forget? Sometimes I make people forget that their unconscious is actually capable of doing stuff while they are deeply in trance. I also love waking trances, and I think it's super fun to be able to have somebody unconsciously be able to put themselves in a trance state, do stuff, and then discover it later when they have woken up. I have often had friends take deeply in trance. They write, I am deeply hypnotized. They put it on a piece of paper. They take a picture of themselves in the mirror or with that piece of paper. They email it to themselves. They forget all about it. And then, they see their email later when they're conscious, and they're like, that's me. And I see the date stamp and the time stamp on that, but I don't remember that at all. I think that's fun. I also think that's fun in circumstances where somebody really hates, for example, to do chores, right? Because not a lot of people are like, oh, I love doing chores. This is so much fun. I really look forward to it. I'm going to make all these things happen. My dishes are clean. My laundry is all folded and put away. The house is sparkling. Go me, right? So I like when the unconscious mind, because the unconscious doesn't really care. The unconscious cares on some level, but it will do the things. So if the unconscious mind has a task and it says, I can do this thing and I will do this thing, it will make it happen. And if the conscious self, like, you might have experienced something in your past where you're like, oh, I have to do this thing. I'm going to go do this thing, and then you don't do the thing, right? How many of you have ever been in that situation where you're like, oh yeah, I didn't do the thing I was supposed to do? I don't know about you, but I'm really, really great at forgetting all the things I'm supposed to do unless they're like written down, unless I have an alarm for them in my calendar. Sometimes last week and this week, or the last 2 weeks, I definitely had the issue where I literally forgot what day it was. I had no idea what day it was. I kept thinking it was a day off. It's only slightly problematic. Depends on what you actually have to get done, right? But your unconscious mind can remember. You can give it triggers. You can give it suggestions that there are things you want it to do, and it will go and do them. Right? Ooh, when I was in college, I needed 3 alarm clocks. I would scatter them across the room because if it was right by my head, like the phone right by my head, no. I would definitely, I would just shut it off and I'd go back to sleep. Yay. I mean, we're going to be talking about sleep because sleep's amazing and we definitely need it. But sometimes you have to get up and go to class, and sometimes you have to get up and go to work, and sometimes you'd much rather sleep. And my brain sometimes just wants to sleep a lot. However, you make it happen. If you use alarms or if you don't, you can actually use hypnosis to set alarms for yourself so that you wake up before your alarm goes off. So I hate alarms because they are disturbing to me. Like I hear the alarm. There's a couple that like actually sound pleasant, fine. But so sometimes I'll be listening to an alarm. I'll be waking up and the alarm is going off and it is the most irritating thing. Then I just wake up cranky. I don't want to wake up cranky. I do not want to wake up cranky. I want to wake up and I want to be happy. So if I don't have to set an alarm to get out of bed, everything's much better. I always set an alarm if I have to like get up at 4 to go to the airport for something. But that's the only time I ever really don't get angry at the alarm clock. So, all right. So all the other types of things for amnesia, let's go back to amnesia. So if you wanted to forget something and then discover you had done it, to forget that you had been given an instruction to do these things, it's absolutely possible when you are being hypnotized. Absolutely possible. So like, you know how sometimes people are like, I have a really hard time focusing. So I have to do this thing, but I have a really hard time focusing. So you can go into a state of trance where your unconscious mind like essentially puts you in blinders. And what you focus on is what's in front of you. And what's in front of you should be that, say, the research you need for the paper that you have to write or whatever that happens to be. And then everything around you, you just don't really hear. You don't, if there's an emergency, like if you're at the library and there's fire breaks out and they need everyone to leave, sure. You would notice that. You'd pay attention. Your unconscious mind would probably be very good at making sure that you gathered up your stuff or left it, whatever they instructed you, and went out so you'd be safe. But otherwise, sometimes somebody comes along and they're trying to distract you. They want some attention. You're like, no, I'm busy. Your unconscious mind can be very good at letting those things go. And then if you do get distracted, getting right back into the thing you're working on. That's another thing that I think is really helpful for amnesia because you can, was it important? They should have written it down, right? Like if something was really important, you can say, well, write that down. They give you a little note. You tuck it somewhere you're going to see it later, and then you forget that. They even interrupted you, and you get right back to doing your studying, your paper, your whatever work it was that you were working on. I know that I sometimes have real issues with getting distracted by other things, purely of my own making. Shh, don't tell anybody. But it's so easy for me to get distracted by stuff. And so sometimes I have to like make a list and be like, this is the top of my list. I'm going to go do this thing right now. So, all right. So what are other things that you might want amnesia for? So sometimes for me, it's fun to have somebody or for other people can be fun to forget who your partner is. And so you get to meet them again for the first time, right? Like some people are like, I want to play this game again that I've been playing for 5 years for the first time. I want to watch this movie again for the first time. Like those are also valid things that you can totally do with amnesia, and that can be a lot of fun as well. So how do you forget a thing? That's the big question, right? How do you forget whatever the thing is? So first of all, if you need assurances, like I talked about earlier, if you need assurances that you can have it back, if it's important you won't forget it, that you could have it back anyway, if you need those assurances so that your conscious self isn't worried over and over and over again that you're never going to do this right or you're always going to remember the things you're not supposed to remember, That's okay. So you can give yourself reassurances ahead of time, or your hypnotist can give you reassurances ahead of time. And then you can be given suggestions in a myriad of ways. There are literally so many ways that a human being can forget something, whatever it happens to be. So one of the ways that you can find yourself forgetting something is to get distracted by something else. And that works out really, really well. But sometimes you have to tell yourself that you're going to remember that thing. Like if it's something that you really do need to do or do need to remember, you can be like, oh, at a later date, this will pop into your head and then you'll remember that thing. So let's see. If you wanted to, let's just say somebody wants to forget a game that they've played, right? One of the ways that I would work on that is to talk about the game and then to ask their unconscious mind to, yeah, isn't it funny that distraction can be a superpower? I would ask their unconscious mind to take every bit of information that they knew about that game and to just like suck it all up into one tiny little bit. Now, this is not the way that neuroscientists will tell you that memory works. But on a hypnotic level, I will tell you that your unconscious mind can very much act as though it is. Can act as though it's going to say, oh, this information is somewhere in my brain, in a lot of places in my brain. I have, I have images, I have sounds, I've had conversations with people, I have feelings when I played the games. Maybe there's like games that have like jump scares or heights types of things, and so your body viscerally reacts to certain things. And so when your brain does those things, it can be fascinating, right? So you have to take those things that your brain understands are tied to that game to gather them up into one place where your conscious self cannot get to. And then you allow yourself to think about the game, to hear the name or to see it somewhere and to be like, I'm really interested and intrigued. That sounds like it would be fun. I play other games that are like that. I think I might enjoy that too. And then your unconscious mind does one of two things. It either just holds on to all that information and doesn't give it back to you until you have been able to play that game again and it feels like it's brand new to you. Or you start playing the game, it feels brand new, but it releases that information slowly as you play it, so it's kind of like you're getting more and more and more information. You're getting more and more and more aware of this game as you go through it. So it could play out in a couple different ways. It could play out as though you are super excited and brand new and everything about this game just like pulls you in more and more because all of your senses are being reignited as you're playing that game. Or you're just playing it for the first time, you're finding it really fun and exciting, hopefully. And then at the end of it, you can be like, oh, wait, I've got 2,000 hours into this game. How did that happen? So, there's ways, you can restart a game. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. But you probably do want to start somewhere near the beginning. There's a game that I play that I can't even tell you how many times I've restarted it from the beginning. But I don't actually care. For me, so I'm one of those people, like a spoiler doesn't ever spoil a movie for me. Like if you tell me that that's a spoiler, my brain literally doesn't care. It's like, cool, I'm still going to enjoy it when I see it. It's still going to, feel good, be enjoyable to watch or to play or to listen to or whatever. So I'm just going to make that happen. So there's that. And then you can always, just let that person know, oh, here's all the stuff, and then you can remember how it felt to do it again for the first time. And I think for a lot of people that's really exciting to be able to do something again. Like, is it going to have the same feeling that you expected? Is it going to be exactly right? I don't know. I can't tell you because everyone responds a little bit differently. And if you're the kind of person who hates spoilers, and we could like take everything and just hide everything you absolutely knew from your brain and you could play a thing again like it was the first time, that might be pretty exciting, right? I think that might be pretty exciting. So, all right. And now what other things do you think you might want to use the amnesia for? If you have anything else, feel free to pop it in the chat. Otherwise, we'll go on and we'll talk about sleep for a little bit. And we'll go and talk about sleep because the more sleep you get, and I mean that in like a general sense. I don't mean like let's go from say 8 hours of sleep a day to 16 hours of sleep a day. I'm not talking about that much more. Too much sleep is also a thing. But if you get enough sleep, if you get more sleep than you were probably getting if you think you have problems, if you have sleep problems and you get interrupted sleep, so you're asleep for a while and then you wake up and then you go back to sleep, but maybe you don't go back to sleep right away, you have to stay up for a little while. So, like, if you do that once in a while, it's not really a big deal for most people for the most part. But for some people, it's all the time. Like, I only got 4 hours of sleep last night, or I only got 3.5 hours of sleep last night, or I slept for 2 hours and I got a 2-hour nap and I guess that's enough. But our body actually craves sleep. And our bodies and our minds work together at night while we're sleeping or whenever we sleep, because not everyone sleeps at night. And when our bodies and minds work together, they help us to retain those memories that we really need to retain. They help us to learn things. So one of the things that you can do, and it's not amnesia, obviously, but you can allow your unconscious mind to learn a thing before you actually go to sleep at night in sort of an accelerated way. And then when you go to sleep, it like is even more firmly embedded in your brain, like how to do it and what to do, all the circumstances surrounding that. And so for a lot of people who are, say, studying or learning a new skill or technique for work, that can be very, very helpful. And still, you want to be able to get the good quality sleep, because the good quality sleep allows your body to just work well all together. I talk a lot about the unconscious and the conscious. Not every hypnotist I know does that. And I do it because I do think that we have patterns and habits that run in the background of our mind. And when these patterns and habits run in the background of our mind, those are things that we are not always aware of on a conscious level. So for me, it's easier to separate those off into two things. I'm not separating them out into two different people. It's still all you. It's still all one person. So I wanted that to be really clear. But when I talk to the unconscious portion of you, I like to make sure that we're doing things that you can do, that you want to do, that any changes in your thought patterns or your behavior are going to be natural and normal and something that you can find yourself continuing on with. So if you needed to get better sleep at night, like there are a bazillion, right? There's a lot of sleep apps out there. They will tell you stories, and they talk in a calm voice, and the stories don't really go anywhere at all. And it's like you're taking a journey, but the journey never really ends, and they hope that somewhere in the middle you're going to fall asleep. And probably you will, right? But I want to say that it's much better when your unconscious mind goes, oh, this is how I turn myself off, or this is how I turn my conscious self off so that I can take care of all these things. This is how I turn my conscious self off so that I don't need to listen every night to these things. This is how I turn things off so that if I get woken up in the middle of the night, I can go right back to sleep. If you wake up to pee or you hear the neighbor's dog barking and you're like at the right/wrong part of your cycle of sleep, and you wake up, you want to be able to just go, okay, fine, roll over and go right back to sleep. Hold on to that. No breaking your phones. So you really want to be able to make sure that your unconscious self is a participant. It's just you that's participating, but it's a part of you that I feel is sometimes neglected. It's a part of you that is sometimes having a hard time with making changes because it doesn't always get clear direction from our conscious selves what we want to do. It's like, oh yeah, I want to go to bed early, and then at like 12:30 you're up playing a game, right? And you're like, oh shit, I got stuff to do tomorrow. So you can allow your brain to get to this point where it's like, okay, we are changing our habits, we are changing our patterns. And if you need to go to bed by 11 o'clock every night, or else you don't get up in time to feel good to get to, wherever you have to be in the morning, you can adjust what time you find yourself feeling sleepy. You can adjust what time you find yourself actually brushing your teeth, washing your face, getting ready for bed. Whatever it is that you do, you can adjust the time that it takes you to fall asleep from when your head hits the pillow. Now, I know a lot of people have like really noisy heads, right? Like super noisy heads. I have a super quiet head. My brain is just like absolutely quiet most of the time. And I know for a lot of people that having a noisy head is just so common. You hear your own voice, you hear other people's voices, you hear things that might be helpful to you, but I think for a lot of people, most of the time they hear voices that are not helpful for them. And I'm not talking about like hearing voices. I'm talking about simply whether or not you're actively hearing it in your ears or it's just like a thought that goes through your head. You are hearing these voices that may or may not be saying complimentary things to you. Like if I'm going to call myself an idiot, I'm just going to do it out loud because that's how I talk to myself. I talk to myself out loud a lot of the time. But if your brain wants to get to a point where your brain is so quiet that it just lets everything else fade away, like your thoughts just kind of like shh, and then it seems like sleep is the best option, and it's not even an actual thought that you have that sleep is the best option. It's just that your head quiets down, the sounds around you might quiet down too. You might just stop hearing things. Now you might listen to music or some background stuff while you fall asleep, totally fine. But your unconscious mind needs to know that you're going to fall asleep and you're going to let yourself stay there. And that nothing can interrupt you until it's time to get up in the morning. So let's talk about that. We talked a little bit about alarms before. So what if you're the kind of person who has to get up at, say, I don't like to get up really early. I have somewhere to be at, say, 10. I want to make sure that I am up by, I don't know, maybe 9:30 to get there on time. But I know other people who have to get up like an hour and a half before they leave for wherever they're going. And like, I'd rather spend that time in bed personally because I think bed is comfy. I like getting my sleep. It makes me feel very, very right. Everything about sleep is just so good. My bed is set up like a nest. I've got like a comfy mattress. I've got quilts and blankets and crisp sheets and all the pillows, which is to say 3. That's how many my neck likes. So I have enough of those types of things. And then I climb into bed and I sleep. I get, my pillows set up the way my neck and my head like it. And I stop thinking about things and I go to sleep. So what does that mean for you? Let's dial that back. Maybe your head is already quiet. Maybe your body just feels uncomfortable. Sometimes our bodies can feel uncomfortable and we toss and turn a little bit because we've like worked out hard at the gym the day before, or a couple days ago we helped somebody move and that was a lot and we twisted and moved and we're like, oh, now I'm sore all over. However you find yourself, you can know that sometimes things will happen that are not normal, right? But my goal for all of you would be that you find yourself getting to a place where sleep happens at a usual regular time for you, that you manage to wrap things up that you need to get wrapped up before that time, that then sleep happens, and sleep is deep, powerful, uninterrupted for the most part. If you get up in the middle of the night to pee, you wash your hands and you go right back to bed, and you fall right back asleep, and that takes, a couple minutes, not more than that. That you wake up in the morning just before your alarm goes off, or whatever you need to ensure that you feel really good when you wake up, so that you feel like you're absolutely refreshed, you feel like your brain has become actually rested, right? And that you are ready to tackle whatever comes your way the next day. So we're going to do some hypnosis with that, and I'm going to do some stuff with the control room. If you've never experienced me talk about that, I'm delighted and also sorry. So we're going to, I'm going to do some hypnosis with you all. You can listen or you can follow along, whichever you please, with the control room. The control room, as I think about it, is a place in your mind where you have control, that's your control room, over every aspect of you that you can possibly imagine. This doesn't mean that you're going to change the color of your hair overnight, although people have been known to change hair color slowly over time. So it is a place where you can go and change it. When I talk about it, I'm going to describe mine, which is what I always do. They may change over time as well. Mine has changed at least twice, maybe 3 times. And however you find yourself thinking about it, because I've done classes on this with a lot of people and they look all sorts of different. Whatever your control room looks like, it doesn't matter as long as you can find yourself relating to the things that I say and finding an equivalent in your head. Okay, so let's do some hypnosis to allow you to get better sleep, to allow you to wake up feeling wonderful, to allow you to get acquainted with your control room, and to think about how all those things might benefit you going forward. The control room is a place where neither you nor I nor anyone else should ever touch some of the things, hi John, that are off limits. And if I or anybody else tries to get you to touch things in your brain or tries to touch things in your brain that you know should just be left alone for right now, you'll find that they can't touch them, that they just stay magically the same. You can always address things at a later point in time, but for now, what we're going to do is pretty generic. It's going to be a broad stroke kind of thing to help as many people as possible learn to get better sleep. Okay? So here we go. I'd like y'all to close your eyes, or you can find yourself staring fixedly at something, whichever way you go into trance best, whether just by listening to the sound of my voice or by staring at something until you find yourself going into trance listening to the sound of my voice. As long as you can go into trance listening to the sound of my voice, you're going to be just fine. And I also believe that everyone here could listen to the sound of my voice and find themselves dropping deeply into trance. So here we go. While you find yourself letting the state of trance overwhelm and overtake your body in the best possible way, your unconscious mind is going to continue to sink and drop and plunge you down deeper and deeper into a state of trance. Whatever that means, however you experience it, at some point in time, you will have dropped deeply enough into trance that your unconscious mind imagines that you are at an elevator or a set of stairs, whatever works better for you. And you take those down even further and you find yourself in a corridor. You find yourself in a plain corridor, nice and wide doors. One of the doors that you come across, in my mind, it's always a plain door, plain wooden door set in like a concrete bunker type hallway wall. There's a plain sign on the wall that just says control room. You open the door, you go in. Start to think about what yours looks like. Start to imagine what it looks like. Start to see and feel what it looks like and what it feels like for you to be in there. Mine has, on the left, a 2-story library. Straight ahead of me is this big half-circle window type thing that lets light in, and I also have a communication system that the last time I actually looked was kind of like those pneumatic tubes that they use at bank ATMs or drivers, when you drive up to the bank. That's what mine looks like. There is a CRT, a dumb terminal, which is basically just a monitor that you can type into for some higher level commands on mine. And then off to my right hand side, there's a U-shaped section where it looks like a server room, but there's a whole bunch of shiny silver stainless steel panels that gleam. Some of them say something. I almost always go to, not the first street, but the second street into that, the second turn. And I always go to either the first or second or third panel. I don't know why. They could be anything you want them to be at any moment, so it doesn't matter which one you go to, but that's almost always the one I go to. If yours is a nature setting, like trees, you're going to have to figure out what those leaves and those branches and those knobs all mean. But I know you can do it. So as you find yourself sinking and dropping down deeper and deeper into trance, your unconscious mind can know that you're going to look at a panel or whatever that you have, and it's going to say sleep on it. And we're going to do a bunch of work to this sleep. We're going to do a bunch of work on that panel that will directly impact you, but don't worry. If we make some changes that you don't like, you don't have to accept them. So just keep that in mind. So we go to the panel that's marked sleep, or you stand in front of a panel and all of a sudden it says sleep on it. Because again, it's your brain. Let it do the thing that feels best and feels right for you. So we're going to change a few things in here. The first thing we're going to change is the amount of time that you're going to find yourself getting sleep. I usually like to set it for between 6 and 9 hours. For most people, that's about right. If you say, you know what, I really need that to be a tighter window, or I need it to be bigger, I'm only getting 2 hours of sleep a night. Even if I got 5 hours of sleep, that would be amazing. If I got 8, it might be too much. So change it to whatever you want it to be. But you can set a little parameter. Do you see little LEDs? Do you have like sliders? However you see it is totally fine. If you like write it on a piece of paper and stick it on there, I get, from 6 to 9 hours of sleep every single night. However you write it down there, whatever kind of input you give to that panel, it's going to take it. So don't worry about the specifics. They're not as important as making sure that you get that information in there. So the duration of your sleep is going to be 6 to 8 hours of sleep a night. That's one. We're going to change when you find yourself going to sleep. Your brain knows when you think about how much sleep you've just told yourself you need to get, when you need to go to bed so you can wake up to make sure all your days start really well, right? So your unconscious mind is now going to have a start point for when your sleep should start. It doesn't have to be I fall asleep at exactly, 10:59 every night. Whatever works for your brain. It can be a little loosey-goosey. It's fine. So you're going to tell your brain, okay, so I want to get between 6 and 9 hours of sleep every single night in order for me to feel rested. We can adjust this later, so no big deal. I want to go to sleep at about X time every single night, give or take 10 minutes either side. How about we'll say that? So let your brain put in what time you want to find yourself getting ready for bed at. And then the next thing is, how long does it take you to fall asleep? I like to think that it should take no more than about 5 to 10 minutes for a person to go to sleep once they have laid their head down on the pillow. So you're just going to tell your unconscious mind, I want to be able to fall asleep as quickly as possible. I want to feel like I'm, tired, like I just need to get this rest, however you find yourself thinking about it. But the moment my head hits the pillow, within 5 to 10 minutes, I'm going to be out like a light. And I'm going to sleep solidly and thoroughly until the morning. Next thing, if I wake up in the middle of the night for any reason, and I can go right back to bed, neighbor's dog barking, you had to pee, whatever. When I go back to sleep, I'm going to fall right back to sleep, back to where I was. It's going to feel really good for me to just put my head on the pillow, get comfy, and be out like a light again until it's time for my alarm to go off in the morning. You want to be really cheeky, you don't like the sound of the alarm like me. I'm going to wake up a minute before my alarm is supposed to go off. I'm going to wake up feeling really refreshed. I'm going to wake up feeling amazing. I'm going to wake up feeling like I'm just ready to start the next day, and it's going to be so good because I feel amazing. And when I feel amazing, I've got a smile on my face. Everyone else can go fuck off because I feel so good. If you don't swear, that's okay. I swear a lot. So your unconscious mind is going to do those things. Set the amount of time that you want to stay asleep for. Tell you when you need to start going to bed. Tell you how long it's going to be before you actually are asleep by the time your head hits the pillow. Tell you how long it's going to be if you get woken up in the middle of the night so you can go right back to sleep the moment your head hits that pillow again. And stay awake, or excuse me, stay asleep until it's time for your alarm to go off, maybe a minute or so ahead of time. And then you wake up naturally just before your alarm goes off and you feel really amazing, ready to start your day. As you see those changes in either my words or the whatever time frames you've selected show up on your panel, whatever your panel looks like, whether you've got a teletype machine there or you think it and it just appears, whether you've got like LED readouts or dials of things, however you set it off. Once you have made those changes, there's going to be a button that pops up, and it's going to be a green button, and it says activate with a question mark. If you want to make those changes, you just reach out with your hand and hit that green button, and all of those changes will be activated throughout your system. Just go ahead and let that happen. As soon as those changes have been activated throughout your system, you might feel a little different, because sometimes people feel a little different right away. However you do it, you're going to, if we had other stuff in here to do, we would make other changes. But for right now, you can always come back here. It's your space after all. You're going to head over to the door. And next to the door are two buttons. And above those two buttons, one says yes, one says no. It says, are you sure? If you're like, no, I'm not sure. I don't know if I want to make these exact changes. I don't know if they're going to be any good for me. I don't know if I'm going to like that. If you're not sure, you can say no. The door will open. If you are sure that you want to make these changes, again, even if they're just for right now and you go in and you play around with them a little bit later, you say yes, hit that button, the door opens for you. The door will open for you either way, whether you say yes or whether you say no. And you can find yourself out in that corridor again, and you can find yourself easily and gently walking down the corridor, coming to the stairs or coming to the elevator, and finding yourself coming up. There's something a little bit magical about the way up. The way up allows every suggestion that you have given yourself to become stronger and stronger the more and more closely you come, to being fully conscious. So I'm going to count up from 1 to 10. You can find yourself coming all the way up, those suggestions really embedding themselves deeply in your unconscious mind where they need to be. 1, 2, 3, coming up and up and up. 4, 5, 6, 7, taking in a nice deep breath. 8, opening up your eyes. 9, stretching and moving a little bit. And 10, wide awake. And as you find yourself coming back to the here and now, let your unconscious mind think about why you want to find yourself getting that sleep. Find yourself thinking about how important it is for you to get good sleep. Find yourself understanding that this is a thing that is important for you, that you understand is going to be beneficial and good for you, that you know that you're going to enjoy experiencing. And as you find yourself thinking about all of those things and coming all the way back up, let me know how many minutes it's going to be for you when your head hits the pillow before you find yourself falling deeply asleep. I do want to say one thing, which is that sometimes suggestions that we receive during the day can take a night to happen, but often with making these adjustments this way, your brain usually just goes, oh, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to make this happen. So your unconscious mind should be able to make that happen without any problems. So lichens, what that says to me is like I would be reading a book. I'd be like lying in bed, having a conversation, reading a book, and then I'd be falling asleep, and the book would end up on my chest and I would be gone. That's what would happen to me. So all right, so thank you all for being here today. If you have any questions about either amnesia or getting better sleep or anything else hypnosis related, please leave it down below. Let me know what you think. Let me know what else you'd like me to chat about. Let me know what other kind of hypnosis sessions you'd like me to do. And I will make those happen for a future Sunday stream or a future recording. I am working on getting those all out as quickly as I can now that I've got a little bit more time on my hands. And I hope that your brains can be really good at making sure that you get all the sleep that you need, that you remember everything that you have to, and that it feels better and better for you to go into hypnosis whenever you do. So, all right, I'm going to say farewell. Have a lovely rest of your weekend, if it's a long weekend for you, or maybe that's next week. I never really remember. I think it's next week. It's surprising that I remember it's holiday because my brain is very good at not knowing these things. But I hope you have a great day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.